Good day. Welcome to WEC podcast. The Women in Ethics and Compliance Global is an international and professional organization where our mission is to empower women in their personal and professional goals with a focus on ethics and compliance by providing a community where they can share their experiences, learn from each other, and grow professionally. We are dedicated to fostering a culture of ethics, integrity, and compliance in all aspects of life, with a focus on women's mental health, legal rights, and professional development. We are an inclusive organization where men and others are very welcome to become a friend of us. I am your host today, Josefina Maggiari. I am the Vice Chair and Director of Events and Education of WEC. Today, we will talk about internal investigations, the existence of well-functioning and funded mechanism for the effective treatment of reports about misconduct is a hallmark of an effective compliance program. In the same way, we can say that having an effective internal investigation protocol should consider procedures for documenting the company's response, including disciplinary or remedial actions. In order to discuss this, we have the pleasure to connect Raúl Sacani, an international expert with more than 20 years of experience in compliance and financial crimes prevention at international level. Raúl is full-time lecturer and co-director of the Governance and Transparency Center at the Business School of the Austral University. He is partner at Deloitte, leading the anti-corruption and financial crime function in Latin American countries. Also, he is the president of the Anti-Corruption Commission at the Economic Science Professionals Council in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Thank you, Raúl, for your collaboration, and thank you all for joining us. Quite a topic today.
Thank you so much, Josefina. It's a great pleasure for me to be here and joining your podcast series on ethics and compliance, which obviously is a matter that so exciting for us.
Yes, and quite a topic. I said, how do you think we should start to address it about internal investigations?
Well, you know, the internal investigation is the process that no company wants to run, right? It means that at some point their compliance program may have failed, and in a way it's quite a painful process if it's not conducted in a way that you reduce the risks that the many risks that an investigation may pose to a corporation with no experience in this area. So it could say that in a way it's in the way we look at it in Latin America, and I'm also making this side note that everything I am saying here is my own and my own experience only here in these latitudes. Although I've been doing some mess elsewhere, but my experience is mainly focused in Latin American countries. And having said that, companies sometimes struggle to cope with the fact that perhaps a regulatory agency is focusing, and it's in the media, and all that kind of crisis management gets quite complicated sometimes. So I would say it's at the heart of the compliance program in the way that people could be accountable for their actions, and also a very key, absolutely key aspect is that every, as we would like to say, every compliance program is it's built to fail. You know, at some point it will fail because we are putting human beings in there, right?
Yeah, yes.
But the important issue here is that how the program evolved into something stronger and you know,
Yes.
capable of resisting that kind of issues that's unfortunately are very common in our region, right?
Yes. Do you see, is there a direct benefit for the company, for the management, and the board, of course, if we do this process, you know, the reviews and the reports and the document processes and the internal investigation itself? What's the benefit?
Well, it's a broad question. I would, the very first to come to mind is that you get the trust back, trust in people, trust in processes,
Totally.
trust in the whole organization. I mean, a well-focused organization, represents the better chance for the company to uncover the relevant facts and be in a good position to effectively stop whatever is going on.
Yes. Yes.
So, when you are when you go armed with the facts and the underlying issues, you will be certainly be in a better position to defend the company and also gain again control of the situation.
Yes, yes, yes. It's a good point. And where do we start? What are the first steps in this?
You know, so basically you got a large variety of triggers that, you know, may elicit the decision of conducting an internal investigation. Could be a wrongdoing, a negative press article, an audit procedure that, you know, detect possible fraud, allegation of sexual harassment. You know, it could be very broad. But once you decided to move forward, which is quite a decisive moment, then you need to have a good investigation plan, basically. So in order to basically you would aim to a number of very important issues when you decide to move forward. The very first, I would say, is to stop the wrongdoing from, you know, from or payments or regular payments or whatever is going on, to stop it right away. The second relevant fact definitely is to preserve, collect or gather the relevant evidence that may be useful for the action plan you drafted. You know, sometimes you don't have the entire picture, and it's always a trade-off, you know, in terms of the information you disclose, because once you start doing procedures to gather evidence, you need to always with this need to know basis, but you definitely start running procedures, and the organization starts, to be aware of that something is going on, and then you start risking evidence, right? For instance, if you go to the IT people in order to make sure where the relevant pieces of information, backup tapes, whatever, are located, then these people will be aware that there is a procedure going on, and then you need to be very, very, very careful of the information you disclose and to whom, and the risk that it's always inherent in this type of procedures that some information could be destroyed or lost, particularly the electronic evidence that,
Yes,
the nature of the electronic evidence is always a challenge.
Yes. Our last podcast, we talk about cybersecurity and compliance, and there we delve into the capital importance of risk management, of information security, how to articulate all of this without failing in the attempt. I know which elements should consider this plan. Are there some elements stronger than others? For example, budget, timelines, reputational issues. What do you think?
Well, it's not that you have like all size fits all, right? And then this is very, very case to case analysis you need to do, and sometimes you receive the information coming from your whistleblower line, and then you wouldn't do exactly the same in every single case. So we need to weight the different issues. Perhaps one of the most relevant from my point of view is, or from my experience in Latin America, is first of all asking how up the organizational ladder you would find possible people involved, right? So if the senior management may be involved in the case, then it changed the whole perspective of the case, right? Because then it's not just you got a potential liability or risk in terms of the the legal proceedings and so on. Then you could also have an issue with the company's culture, which is it's not that you're just investigating, the typical conflict of interest case in the procurement department,
Yes.
Rather than a large scale corruption case with a C-level involved, right?
Yes.
So first of all, I would try to somehow assess the extent of the issue, and obviously it would change a lot. I mean, if I am compliance manager in a small and a medium-sized Latin American company with recently issued compliance program with limited resources, and with an issue that escalate all the way up the senior management, then I would definitely perhaps delegate the internal investigations to be conducted by a third party. Well, actually, we got guidelines that even suggest that in such cases would be better to have someone from usually most of the cases from a law firm specialized in internal investigations, running the case or coordinating the case for various reasons. Basically, one of those important reasons is the legal privilege, that everything that goes on within that process would be protected from the professional secret standpoint. So I would say that in such cases, instead of having the compliance officer running the investigations, it may be better to start thinking of having someone from a law firm to conduct it, and from that point onwards, then you will have the law firm that will coordinate with other professionals, with other specialists, also interacting. For instance, and that's where we normally get involved with is in the collecting, not just collecting and preserving the evidence, also analyzing the evidence, conducting interviews, going to the public media to get open sourced information and so on.
Yes.
So we in this kind of complex cases, I would say that normally we collaborate with the law firm for conducting and running the procedures.
Yes, I totally agree. What about the scope of the investigation, both if there is a formal complaint and there is a public prosecutor acting, or there is a voluntary investigation? How we can draw the boundaries, the limits in the case?
Yeah, well, that's also a tricky question because it always depends on the specific issues around the case, and the problem that the uncertainty of what actually happened is also an issue, because you need to establish at that very early stage how far would you go into the past transactions, who are the targets of this electronic evidence preservation process, who are you going to interview, and all that, and in which order, which is also a tricky issue. So the protocol that you would put together should be sufficiently flexible, to for a scope of investigation to evolve. I mean, it's more important, from my experience, would be more important to document how the scope evolve once you get to know the facts and the evidence, because sometimes you interview someone that tells you that someone else could have more information and so on. So then this the procedures and the scope and the depth of the procedures should be adapted to this new information, right? So you need to be careful on on how you document, because at some point you may need to convince a prosecutor about that if the company discloses to the authorities the issue in a, for instance, in an FCPA's matter, then obviously you will need to cooperate with the authorities and explain what you did, and obviously you get to know the facts and the issues based on the procedures you performed, and you need to you should be able to explain basically why you stopped at some point, or why you interviewed someone, and why you don't interview someone else, right? So basically you may start with some basic procedures, and then this may evolve into something more sophisticated. And from my experience, it's very important to document very well how you make changes to the scope.
Yes, I was thinking about, you said that the communication process, about internal and external communication strategy, human resources, how do you obtain the info from people, how you get involved the employees. Can you tell me something about this?
So if let's first face the issue of the reputation of the company, right? If the case goes to the public in a media article or whatever, you need to have a kind of crisis management strategy in place, right? Mm-hmm. And it may be framed within the broader public relations strategy. Will depend very much on the bigger companies may have a strategy already in place. The main issue to have in mind is that we need to avoid more damage or a damaging situation than the issue itself, right? Mm-hmm. I would say as a general rule, it will be advisable to have someone designated as a speaker, with the media, and it's always better to have an idea of also, again, coordinated with the legal defense, mm-hmm. what can be said or what cannot be said, and sometimes no comments is not the best strategy. In terms of the impact on the reputation of the company, sometimes you need to say something, mm-hmm. and the off the record conversations also are not a good idea. So you need to have a strategy on what you're going to say to the media, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where having a media advisors, it's working together with the legal counsel that's leading the case, then we will be better prepared, mm-hmm. for the moment where if at the front door of the company there journalists waiting with a microphone. Yes. And it's surprising how often you see very senior people get complicated with questions made by journalists. So you need to have you need to be trained, basically. And that's from the outside world, but from the inside world, I would say that, again, the need to know basis, it's the general rule to apply, right? Because for the same reasons I mentioned earlier, the evidence and the facts may be, particularly the evidence, may be at risk if you disclose information to someone that could even be involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's very, very, very often we see people that really wants to know what's going on. It's not just about the gossip. It's not gossip. It's because they wanna, to assess their personal risks, legal or even criminal risks in terms of the procedures that you're carrying on. So we normally are very jealous about the information we share, and always, again, very, very aligned to the strategy and to the the advice and the knowledge of the legal counsel, right?
Yes. And what do you think are the most important challenges of obtaining this evidence during the process?
Well, many challenges, and we need the different types of evidence with will have different challenges, right? But generally speaking, and we can then later go deeper into the different types of sources of evidence. I would say that generally speaking, when you are trying to obtain evidence, the important issue is that you get information, you get access to the information, you preserve it, to collect, and then for the next steps in order to review the information, then you need to do that in a manner that is consistent with the legal issues around the gathering of evidence. For instance, you need to be aware of the data protection issues or regulations in place in the jurisdictions you are running these procedures, in order to avoid potential challenges of this evidence later on, because it's very, very, very normal that, and even you would expect that the people being charged, being accused of something based on the information we gather, that the very first the criminal defense would do is to challenge the procedure, So since the procedure is not being conducted in a way consistent with the regulations and the best practices in place, then it may be, let's say, complicated for the strategy of the case. So you need to go and explain, and even could be a risk for the entire investigation, right?
Yes.
Or worse, you could be labeled as uncooperative by a prosecutor,
Yes.
So it's a huge risk.
Yes. And what do you think about disadvantages of conducting an internal investigation by the compliance officer or an external advisor, a legal firm. Do you think there are advantages and disadvantages? What do you think about it?
You mean in terms of who should run the investigation?
Yes, exactly. Who lead it? Yes.
All right. Who's who's gonna take the position of
Yes.
coordinating and leading? And that's a good question, because again, it will depend on the issue itself. Sometimes you may have the internal investigation people coordinating the case. Sometimes you will have a HR coordinating the case. Sometimes you would have the compliance officer doing that. I mean, it will very much depend on the issue. We see all the variations, we have seen of all of that. Sometimes if it's for instance as a sexual harassment case, you will find HR people involved normally. If not leading the case, counseling or participating in this. Sometimes when you got a case where procedures or the company's controls been overruled for getting that a wrong advantage, for instance, as I mentioned earlier, like the procurement people through some bidding or eluding a bidding process, then getting advantage of a single sourced vendor and this typical conflict of interest issues. Then in such cases, you will have internal audit people get involved in the case at some point. But something, again, that's you need to assess and decide based on the very unique circumstances of each case, right? So the way you put together the team, sometimes it will have experts on, for instance, IT or information security. If it's a case of, for instance, a cyber attack, which is so common these days.
Yes.
You need to have people from the information security department working on the case. Again, it will depend on each typology, and you need to decide whether it's a good idea to have someone from the company working in the case or not. Again, the main question here is how this involvement adds value to the process, to the main objective, which is getting the facts. And another important consideration is that the independence of the team running the investigations should also be a consideration, for the compliance officer.
Yes.
Because otherwise, the whole, I'd say if you want to restore the trust lost in people or procedures, running an investigation with people that could have some level of responsibility on the issue, then it will be hard to explain how you restore trust based, with this the way you structure the team, right? So that's a very important key consideration when you at the very first steps of the process, you put together the team. That's very, very important, taking into account the independence of those involved in the investigation process.
Yes, when is it strictly necessary to do an internal investigation, and what it depends on? In an example, it's necessary to have an investigation plan as a comprehensive strategy in the company, or it's better to act in each case, seeking the particular strategy according the facts, and or do you think the whole company must have a comprehensive strategy despite of the particular strategies?
You mean like a written protocol to
Yes.
have a policy about
yes.
how to run an internal investigation?
Yes.
But again, I think I've seen it all. I'd say that I've seen very detailed and complex protocols for particularly companies regulated, and it's sometimes it's common to see that, for instance, in a regulated environment, you have a company with a policy that it's fairly detailed in terms of the procedures to be performed. And I saw, and that's something that it's also a consideration to be made in terms of who you would involve in the case, because there are cases where you would involve, for instance, the internal audit department, right? And perhaps they have a policy that saying that in every single matter they investigate, they should perform a written report, right? Or perhaps your own protocol says that you need to have a written report.
Yes.
So then you would put a corset, you would put you be a slave of your own policy, right? And sometimes it's not a good idea to have a written report. And we discussed this a lot with our friends, our cousins, the lawyers, in complex FCPA matters where they perhaps they don't want us to write a report, particularly in those cases where privilege may be challenged, and that then that information may be subject to disclosure. It could be out of the protection of the legal privilege. So that's where you need to be very conscious that whatever you say in that policies may be challenging in terms of again, the flexibility you need to have in some complex cases, particularly those related to corruption, where
that's interesting.
Yeah, where you need to have the flexibility to run the case following the legal strategy.
Yes.
And sometimes when you got and I think this example is very clear, that you are using or getting help from people within the organization that got their own policies and their own internal methodology, where say, look, here you go, there you go, the all the evidence and all the facts and all the issues, and it's all very well explained in this written report, which be exposing the company to a lot of risks, all being perfectly written there. So that's why we usually hear from the legal counsels that we usually work with, that whatever you decide to put into a report, you need to be aware that it's maybe subject to disclosure. And there, in such complex cases, you will have the company will be exposed to a number of different liabilities and risks. I mean, it's not just the criminal liability. It may be also cases where you will have other stakeholders, looking and maybe using that information. So whatever you put in those protocols, it should be written in a way it's not creating more damage, more risks than the whole idea of writing a policy.
Yes.
Again, we saw many different versions of an internal investigation protocol. Which is useful to have is, or maybe useful to put boundaries directed to those that are investigating. For instance, you would not cross the line in terms of the proceed, in terms of the way you're going to gather the evidence. That means that it connects to the rights of the employees
Sure.
that they're being under investigation. So again, I would say that whatever you put in an internal investigation protocol should be flexible enough for the huge
intention
amount of cases and varieties and special characteristics of, or unique characteristics of each case, right?
Yes.
You may not structure that in a way that in every single case I am going to interview people. In every single case, I am going to gather electronic evidence, because that's you may not do that in a particular case.
Yes. I totally agree. And when you finish the job, the investigation job, I think the self-reporting can be useful. What do you think about this practice?
You mean
self-reporting, like
disclosing to the facts to an authority?
Yes.
Again, I think it will depend of the legal strategy in each case, because if you know that, and that's from the Latin American standpoint.
Yes.
If you get to know that there is a prosecutor in the US that is investigating the company for an FCPA case, or that that the the prosecutors are focusing on a particular industry, and you know that you may have risks there, then you decide to, take the and you receive, for instance, an allegation in your reporting channel, and then you decide to investigate, and then you find you get to know that the allegation was right, and that you got a strong case. Then you need to decide if you go to the authorities or not, and that's a tough decision. I mean, in Latin America, it's a tough decision, particularly in those cases that are related to corruption. And given that the actual course of the investigations that are ongoing, and how the sometimes corruption cases get trapped in a mix of political turmoil that we sometimes have in our countries. So that also something that you would take into account for deciding in Latin America if you're gonna go to a prosecutor with the information you got. However, if you know that the companies in the US is subject to an investigation, and you perform the internal investigation locally, then given that it may go to the public that the company is under investigation, then you may evaluate the chance of going to a local prosecutor and put the facts to their consideration. But that's definitely a tough decision. Definitely one that you will want to have a legal strategy aligned and very well designed. It's not that something that we see companies are willing or very actively pursuing, although regulations are the laws in Latin America, generally speaking, they give benefits to those self-reporting, right? Given that the way the markets work in Latin America, most of the companies are family companies that a corporation self-reporting may impose a risk to the shareholders, which are in most of the cases also managers.
Yes. Yes.
So that's a way where we found a difference in compared to other markets where companies where the markets are more sophisticated in terms of how in terms of the ownership of large corporations, and that's quite different in Latin America, and that's perhaps one of the reasons why companies are quite reluctant to go and self-report to authorities in cases where the investigation will also be subject to scrutiny from the media,
Yes.
and the reputation of not just the company, but the family will be, you know, under you know, under pressure and exposed. So that's taking all that issues into consideration. Is that why in Latin America you wouldn't see many cases as you may see in other jurisdictions, mainly in the US, right? Because our culture and the way the judiciary system works and the way even the capitalism works in our region is different, right?
Yes. You mentioned culture. Finally, it's a pleasure to talk to you, and I would like to know, what do you think about the impact of internal investigations in the organizational culture and the compliance programs?
That's a great question. I think it will have a huge impact, for better or for worse. Because for better, if you see that you are being held accountable for anything wrong that happened, then the rest of the organization will follow the example and will take note that what you say in your code of conduct about zero tolerance or things like that, you follow that principles, and whatever the place of this in whichever place of the company a wrongdoing occurred, then you will react, and we will take action. And that's as I said at the beginning, the compliance programs are not bulletproof, in terms that they can fail, right? And they will, probably, because you are facing challenges and risks, and you know, it could happen. But if it happened, then internal investigation is the way you may restore the balance, right? You may restore the trust. And it's a great example, a great way for enhancing the program, you know, and your culture. On the other hand, if you don't apply this powerful tool in a way consistent within the entire organization, then you risk the people failing or losing trust, losing faith in all these companies' culture and policies and so on, because justice needs to be applied in a way equally to everyone, right? So when the internal investigation process fail, then it will be in a difficult position to explain how the remedial actions are taking place, and how you're going to restore the companies compliance program and trust in the in all this in the system itself, right? So I would say that's very key, and that's why the DOJ, the Department of Justice, is very clear in terms of this issue when policing the guidance for prosecutors to evaluate the adequacy and the effectiveness of the compliance program. And they, when an internal investigation was performed, or a case was completed, they ask a lot of questions about how you, in using the training part of the compliance program, you get this spread, to the organizations, always consistent with the local regulations, but also making the company's employees aware of what happened and what the company did. And that's the way also, in a way, it enhanced the company's culture. So regulators are putting focus on that, on company's culture as well, with the last version of the guidance they're providing prosecutors, right?
Yes. Last but not least, the tone of the top, no? That, I think it's a key issue.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And again, no. Imagine you are a sole compliance practitioner at a middle-sized company, and you go to the board and say, "Look, we have this issue," and you got directors saying, well, don't matter. Don't be. We don't care. It's fine. It's the way we run our company, and so on. Typical. The typical way, or we hear people rationalizing some bad practices, right? And then you need to decide whether you want to stay in that company or not, right? Because the tone at the top is absolutely key for the compliance program evolution. And not just that, but we will hardly find a successful compliance program if the top management or the senior leadership of the company is not involved, right? It's not leading by example, right? Much better than whatever you say in your code of conduct, right? Yeah. So they need to walk to walk the talk, right? They need to senior leadership need to lead by the values that the company shared within the policies, and the rest of the organization will follow. Middle management is very important as well. And it's not just tone at the top, it's not tone at the middle as well, because the rest of the company is perhaps closer to the middle management, right? But I would say that in Latin America, the owners of the company, which normally allows our senior management, should be aligned with all this, right? And leading the companies with their own example. That's the only way, perhaps, right?
It's very clear, and I plenty agree with you. I think it's essential to take these critical points into account. I enjoyed very much this episode. It was so interesting, and I think it led a great path to discuss nowadays. Thank you again to our guest, Raul Zacani. You can connect him in LinkedIn, where he has an outstanding newsletter that I strongly recommend. Thank you, Raul.
Thank you so much, Josefina, and it's a great pleasure for me to stay close to the Women in Ethics and Compliance global team, and you're doing great job, and I hope I'm invited next time. So thank you so much.
For sure. Thank you. And please follow us at our social platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and visit our website to reach information about memberships, about activities, further event dates, and more. Thank you all for joining WEG once more. Events and activities like this will be available through future registrations. See you next.
Bye.